Okay, we are streaming and we have audio ready when you are.
Okay. I call this May 7th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. Please rise, everyone, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Roll call for tonight's meeting. Hornseth?
Present.
Charbonneau? Here. Hubbard?
Here.
Allman is excused, Verhey excused, and Chair Griswold.
Present.
Okay, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, we have citizens' comments on any subject except those items scheduled for a public hearing. Those who have signed in will be given the first opportunity to speak. Time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker and 36 minutes total time for this agenda item. Has anyone signed in to speak?
Nobody is signed in.
Is anyone in the audience wishing to speak? Hearing none, close the citizen comments. And we'll move on to approval of agenda and consent agenda. I need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda.
Okay.
I'll second.
In a second, thank you. Could I just ask, is anyone here to speak to Resolution 2024-012, which is the camper park? Okay, otherwise I would move that to the top. Okay.
The what? I'm sorry.
The camper park?
The RV park?
Right.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's me.
Is that you? Okay. I would like to move Resolution 2024-012, the camper park resolution, to the top of the public hearings. Okay. Would the clerk please take the vote?
Voting on the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda. Hubbard?
Yes.
Charbonneau?
Yes.
Hornseth?
Yes.
And Chair Griswold.
Yes.
Okay, your agenda and consent agenda have been approved, and on the consent agenda was the approval of the April 2nd, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes.
Very well, thank you. Next on the agenda is special orders, presentations, and reports. We have no proclamations or awards. City administration report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple things to share with the commission and public is, one, still going to throw out our plug for the one vacant seat that we have on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so,
What's the name?
the vacant seat on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Did you give a name to that?
No,
Oh,
a
okay.
vacant.
Oh,
Vacant seat that we would like to fill with a
Okay.
name. And so, yeah, if anyone is interested, again, on our website, the community development website, we did an information session a while back that talks about everything is entailed to be on the commission and be a commissioner. So please check that out. News from the past city council meeting is that the 3 rezones that you all as a commission recommended were all passed unanimously, and so that was good to hear. And in regards to the Mount Marathon, like informal Jeep trailhead, conversation about signage that came up at the previous Planning and Zoning Commission. Had a good conversation. The City Council had a good conversation about that. They wanted to get some more information from the fire chief and like other departments, police, etc. And so they are putting that as a discussion item for the next City Council meeting. And so that conversation will continue. So if anyone is interested, again, in voicing their thoughts on the signage at the Jeep trailhead, feel free to show up to that meeting. Those 2 of those rezones were from the Municipal Lands Inventory and Management Plan recommendations, and now that those are out of the way, we're working on a few more of the recommendations. We've got 4 in the works that Courtney has been working with Stacy with AK Lands, and so just to kind of share real quick what those four are right now, and I'll point out the page numbers on that plan if anyone wants to check that out later. But on page 91, 92, we've got Quabi Park as one of the downtown parks, and that recommendation was to replat those two parcels into a single parcel. And so we're working on that one. On page 98, we got the Spring Creek Campground, and that recommendation was to plat the Spring Creek Campground into one parcel and rezone as park. And so that one is also in the works. On page 102, 101, 102, the 4th of July Beach. That recommendation was to create one lot by plat that encompasses the portion of land that comprises 4th of July Beach and rezone that as park. And then the fourth one is dealing with the replat at the Marathon Addition vacant lot, which that is on page 175 of that plan. So those are on the works, and we'll have those coming down the pipeline for you all. And then there are still other recommendations on that plan that I think at a future work session we'll bring forth to the commission to maybe get a priority list of which ones you want to tackle, because some of those might be a little more time consuming to do that. I want to throw a plug out for a comprehensive safety action plan workshop that's taking place this Thursday at the Seward Community Library from 5 to 7 p.m. with a short presentation at 5:30. And what that is about is the borough with partner cities of Homer, Kenai, Seldovia, Seward, and Soldotna are developing the first comprehensive safety action plan structured around the Safe Systems Approach National Roadway Safety Strategy developed by the United States Department of Transportation. And so this action plan will help the borough and its partner cities, including Seward, understand the causes and contributing factors to human mistakes in our transportation system and identify opportunities to improve safety, especially for areas of highest concern. And so this public workshop is being held to help Seward meet the project team, learn about safety planning, the project schedule, and share any personal transportation safety concerns that the public would have. And so we encourage the public to attend that. If they are unable to attend, there is a project website you can check out that has a survey you can take to express your thoughts on safety concerns, and the QR code and or link for that website were posted to the city's Facebook page. It is on the flyers that we posted around town at City Hall, the library, post office, harbor master, or feel free to contact our office and we can get that link sent out to anyone. And other than that, the last couple things is we've got a lot of requests, ideas, topics from citizens, commissioners, from administration about future work session topics. And so when we get to that section of the meeting, if I could have a few minutes to kind of just talk about our office's perspective on some of those priorities. And the last thing is our office is participating in the virtual National Planning Conference put on by the American Planning Association. That's taking place tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. I know Commissioner Hubbard is joining us with that as well, and Chair Griswold might hop in for a couple presentations. And so we'll still be in our office, but for the public, we're gonna have our door closed as we participate, but if there's any urgent concerns, feel free to come on in and we'll help you out. But the conference host site is in Minneapolis, so Central Time Zone, so we'll be working a little earlier in the day, so we'll have amended office hours from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. for the next 3 days. And that is all I have.
Thank you very much. Does the commission have any questions for administration?
The work session topics, priorities, where were you going to put that? Where does that get addressed in the agenda? I'm sorry.
At the end of the meeting is when we talk about what the next work session will be, topics will be, and then I've got some topics for you all to kind of brainstorm priority list of what you want to tackle for the next few of those.
So we'll be discussing that then?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much. The next topic is other reports and announcements. There are none. And next we have presentations, limited to 10 minutes each, excluding questions and answers, and are limited to 2 per meeting. We have one presentation scheduled, and that is the passenger dock project and other port improvements by the Seward Company and the Alaska Railroad Corporation.
Great, thank you, Chair Griswold. To the Commission, we have quite a few slides. We'll be going through them quickly since we already only have 10 minutes. But first I want to introduce the group that's down with me today. We have Preston Carnahan. He's a Regional VP of Destinations for Royal Caribbean Group. We have Megan Clemens. She's the Director of External Affairs for the Alaska Railroad. And then finally we have Mickey Richardson, and he's going to round off the presentation, and he's with the Port of Tomorrow and the Seward Company. And these guys are going to try to leave right after the presentation so that they can see if they can beat the highway restriction. But I'm going to stick around, so if there's further questions that we don't answer, if there's questions for me at the end, I'll be here. So just really quickly, that's a picture of our project we'll be talking about. Next slide, please. Our mission statement, you can find that online, but that's our guiding goal for everything that we do here in Seward. Next slide, please. Here's the port as it functions now, and most of you on this commission know the history of the railroad here, but I'm happy to further vet it later with you but I know Chair Griswold knows it probably better than the rest of us. Next slide, please. Here's some pictures of the passenger dock being built after the '64 earthquake. Next slide, please. And then here's our freight dock. I really want to highlight this as a major project we're working on, but I'm going to talk about it. Next slide. Next slide. In the context of our overall master plan in 2017, we did a master plan drive to make sure that we're not just doing projects individually. Like, we have a full build-out plan for the port. You'll see, and I'm just going to go through all the projects that are noted on this slide. We have a Port Avenue extension, and that's actually part of our freight dock plan that we have, which is a MIRAD grant that we received in 2019. MIRAD had to be on the ground first before we could start working on that project, so that started late in 2022, and we're expecting the build out of that freight dock project to begin in 2026. So as part of our master plan, we're really trying to divide the industrial traffic to get that out through our property from the interference with the tourism traffic. You know, there's that intersection at Port Avenue and the highway that we want to make sure remains safe. So the orientation of this road that you have on this slide might not be the final, so don't dial in too much on that. That'll be decided as we move forward with final design and the regulatory agencies. But in addition to that freight dock MIRAD project that we're doing, you know, we have further plans to dredge that barge basin so we can have barges on that back side of that dock. We have some plans with the barge uplands there. We have some upland support work to be done as we move towards our larger new passenger dock project, and that's the bulk of our presentation, which is why I have to hurry through this. But as part of that passenger dock project, I'm not sure how much time we'll have to vet that, but I do want to mention that the city and the railroad are working closely on an EPA grant. EPA's come up with the first type of grant for shore power. So as we work on that, making it so those ships have the ability to plug in here, meet some of their desires around keeping the environment, to a level and utilizing that shore power to meet some of those goals. You've probably already seen we have a project that should be completed in June to take down that loading tower and arm at the end of the coal dock, and that will include removing quite a bit of that conveyor to the building. So we're going to be, that dock is in very good condition, so taking those pieces down before they become unsafe, so they're safe now, we want to get those down first and just have it be an asset to the community, taking down some of the view shed issues, and then also as we're looking at new customers for that dock, they can vision that dock better. Some of the other projects we've are planning to upsizing the luggage tent at the depot. We're working on a number of small projects in the yard just to keep moving towards the master plan as we invest in Seward infrastructure. But the real project that we've made presentations about this evening, and I know we're running out of time, is I want to, next slide please, turn it over to Mickey to just give you a briefing on our passenger and terminal dock project. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners, it's a pleasure to be here on behalf of Port of Tomorrow, which is the owner and holder of the Seward Company. You know, we were brought in, this project, as you know, has been tried a few times, and this is actually the fourth iteration. And one of the things that we bring to the puzzle is certainty, which is how do we bring certainty to the project to get it from where we are today to the grand opening in April of 2026. So I'm just going to run through the slide deck very quickly. As you see, this is a terminal. If you go to the next slide, what we've done is really reimagined and aligned with our cruise partner, Royal Caribbean, who's here in the room, utilizing their knowledge and learnings from cruise ports around the world, and how do we build the most world-class facility here in Seward, meeting with the needs of not only the cruise lines, but also the community, as well as the railroad. The current footprint, as you see, has our build out over the water. Current dock is fixed with the terminal building that sits on that pile system that sits offshore. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see what we're going to do tomorrow is to utilize the entire space. So we've reimagined the way the traffic flows into the terminal building. The terminal building is moved from 20,000 square feet to this new, very stylish, I'm very excited facility. It's over 60,000 square feet. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, to also a floating structure. This allows us to moor 2 ships on either side, move up and down with the ships. And as Christy mentioned, we are working diligently with the city to integrate from the beginning, from our grand opening, shore power to power both sides of the dock as part of this. Also, just to mention about the shore power, this is a 90-10 grant, which is 10% has to be fronted. Normally that's done by the city, but through our partnership, the Port of Tomorrow is funding the 10%. So we will be paying that out of our budget that we have built into shore power into the new facility. So we'll write the check for that with the EPA grant. So that will allow us to get all the way from the current transfer station all the way down to the ship as part of this full program. Next slide, please. One of the things that we're doing in the terminal is we are changing the way guest flow happens. Right now we have guests that are walking in front of moving vehicles. It's not the safest operation. We don't have a really dedicated space for the shuttle that are moving guests into town. We try to accommodate all those things in the terminal, and as we like to say in the cruise industry, move guests seamlessly from the car or their mode of transportation directly onto the ship. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see one of the things that we've done is we've put no fixed assets inside the building. The new mode of moving guests is using pre-registration, face recognition technology, but it also allows us to take this space and allows it to be open. We've doubled down on the number of outlets in the floor, and that has to do with being flexible in the future, but it also realizes that this space is the largest community space for Seward, and we wanted to keep it that way as well. So next slide. You'll see here that we have 2 sides of the terminal. One is an embarkation side. You'll also see on the top half of this slide is an open air area. We utilize this space for vehicles, things that need to be stored in the winter. The other thing that we've done in this design is to have heated floors both inside and outside, knowing what the future might hold and being able to provide a facility that can be used in the winter, be expanded if we needed to the outside. So we've kind of doubled down on the heat for this building. That was one thing I heard about the old building is not really insulated well. So this building will be insulated, and also we're seeking the easiest things for LEED certification. Very difficult to achieve here in Alaska, but we're going to do our best to get close. Also, you see that debarkation terminal, I call that the express lane down the middle. One of the reasons that we've built this the way that we have is so that guests that have already boarded the ship, as you know, they don't leave till late. We want them to have direct access back off of the ship and into the community. So we want to have as few distractions, don't have to go through a security system, don't have to interfere with guests that are getting on, just an express lane back to Seward. Next slide, thank you. Once again, we're going to be doing dispatch loading. Next slide. And what that means is guests will be getting off of the curb, moving into the building, depending on where they are in the loading or unloading process. Next slide. you'll see that what we've done is created space for 28 buses on the center, but all those buses are in forward movement, meaning you'll never see a bus move backwards. You'll also see along the purple path or the orange stripe is that those are buses that are being queued. So as guests walk off the ship, they're not walking across to their bus, they're walking off the curb and stepping onto the vehicle that they'll be departing. Or stepping onto a shuttle coming into town. Those car spaces that are up top, those are for local operational people that are working within the port area. Next slide. I'm coming down to my last 45 minutes here, but I think this is one of the most important slides that we have, and that is Royal Caribbean has committed $137 million over the next 30 years to the project. This is the largest commitment in the state of Alaska, in the history of Alaska, and it's a commitment not only to the port and to the railroad, but also shows their commitment to the community here and the residents of Seward. It's not that we're going to build it and they'll think about 2 years later whether they're going to stay here or go somewhere else. They're here for the next 30 years as commitment to this project. I also put up there the $25 million that's being put into the freight facility. I did some math earlier today. In the port area in Seward, the railroad is committed with this project to over $175 million into this economic driver for the community. So I know that there's quite a few more slides here as well, and I'm over time, but the important thing to know is that we are committed to this project from now all the way through to April when we'll begin. There's a timeline also later in the deck you can view, but everything about the port and what we're trying to do through the development process is online at the sewardcompany.com. That's a public page. We will be adding an element there as well about the shore power and our commitment to that with the city for the EPA grant and the progress. As Christy mentioned before, we've already scheduled time to come back to the community to talk specifically about that form of the side of the project, the shore power, and to provide updates for the community as we move forward. So once again, thank you for your time this evening, and if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. 10 minutes is not nearly enough time for this. Does the commission have any questions?
Yes, actually, I was just curious. You said the facility is going in size from 20,000 to 60,000 square feet, and that's a mix of indoor and outdoor. And I was curious what the indoor space size would be. Would it still be 20,000 or around that?
So the question is about the old facility being 20,000 enclosed space, and we're pushing more around 12,000 square feet on the outside. That's outside space, and the rest will be enclosed out of that 60. We're flushing out now. As you see in the drawings, there are some additional office spaces. We've had some requests for additional retail space inside the facility and how that could work out. And the other thing that we are going to be adding is a series of outside bathrooms. They'll obviously be indoors, but so that guests can access that, and also line handlers, dock workers will also be able to access restrooms without having to go into the secure space. So that will change and actually increase our indoor size of the overall footprint. Very good question. Thank you.
Commissioner Hubbard?
Yep. Should I read this? So you're with the Seward Company, and you're helping facilitate the drawing of this, and then I understand, did you say that there's a representative from the Caribbean, Royal Caribbean here too? And you've mentioned that the area and the space is going to be probably the biggest area of space that Seward will have, and I'm imagining conventions or different things, and maybe cooperative use with the community. How can we guarantee that with this relationship?
Okay, so let me just take a step back and answer that. So it's this project, you know, we didn't have a lot of time, but to tell you the structure of the project, it's an unsolicited proposal, but the relationship will be between the railroad and our CCL, and the railroad will continue to own and operate that dock, and the railroad has made the commitment that we will continue to make that cruise ship terminal available to the community, much like we do now.
Yes, through the chair. So essentially, the Port of Tomorrow is the developer, the builder, and our intent through the unsolicited proposal is that the railroad will continue to own and operate the facility as they have for many years after the construction is completed. And really, as the railroad has been here and supported in the community, will continue to be that through the operational of the new facility. So we are Alaska-based company, but your contact in the facility and use of the facility is through the commitment of the railroad to Seward, as it always has been.
Go ahead.
So the fiscal deal here is is Caribbean's going to front the money perhaps, and then the railroad's going to end up owning this building? Is that how it's going to work? Or is that still being talked about?
No, so if you look, there is a slide about Royal Caribbean's of 140,000 passengers to this for the next 30 years. So the railroad is completing a bonding process that will actually purchase the facility at the end of the construction, and then that bond is paid back through a revenue guarantee from Royal Caribbean that guarantees they pay for the build out over the next 30 years of the facility, the maintenance, as well as the operation. But that is in turn paid to the railroad exactly the way it is today through passenger fees and head tax money that comes through, as that gets divided. So it's a similar model that you have today. It's just a new facility that's going in, and Royal Caribbean is committing to that guarantee to fund the facility for the next 30 years.
Any questions?
We had a proposal, presentation earlier, a few years ago that mentioned a floating dock and it being removed in the winter. Is this floating dock will be a permanent floating dock?
Yes, through the chair. The dock that is proposed is a barge-based system. So it is 749 feet in length, 100 feet in width. It is designed in two sections, and I know that that's been a little bit of a confusing element here in Seward, because the rumor has it that allows us to pull it out in the winter. And that's really not the case. When it gets installed, it will be as one floating structure and will be permanent in place. The advantage to being the two separate pieces allows, if there is an accident and the barge needs to be repaired, for it to be repaired here in Seward. Otherwise, we would have to tow it all the way to Seattle for a space big enough to service it. The dock is designed to be in place for 50 years with zero maintenance. Obviously, there's a maintenance plan as well that will make it extend its life well beyond that, but it's designed to be in the water year-round. And although this is being designed with the cruise ship passenger in mind, we also know, we were asked, for example, if the Ted Stevens, when it's inaugurated, if it could park there. And we did a little engineering with a tie-up, and the answer is yes. So essentially, it's designed because of the largest class of ships that are being designed in the market. We have to adhere to those standards. You can tie up anything on that dock, and it will be there throughout the summer months, winter months, for many, many years to come, for whatever vessels come here to Seward.
Thank you.
I have a tie-in question to that. So floating docks, we have those in the harbor, and when we have a very low tide, the ramps are like that. How will you accommodate passengers and supplies and repairs when the tides are low?
Yeah, very, very good question, Madam Chair. So what happens is that angle of the trestle, as we call it, the transfer span, it has to do with the length of the span that we're accommodating for the tide. This barge system is very unique in the fact that if you look at floating docks around the state, those are mostly pontoon-based systems. By being a barge system, this allows us to actually, we put water or ballast into it, so that it actually sits about 23 feet below the surface. And that allows us to give us a stable platform for dock operations. And when I say dock operations, that also includes provisioning for trucks and vehicles that have access. So it's very important to us that the transfer span is long enough that what it does is reduces the angle at low tide so that it is manageable. There's been quite a bit of learning around the state with floating docks, because as you might have known, like in Southeast, it was all fixed docks and it was challenging moving gangways up and down, and then they went to floating docks, and then a lot of the trestles were not designed to be long enough, so that transfer span created difficulty for those with mobility challenges. In our case, I think the angle of that is actually easier for on the mobility walking side, and our issue is that we're going to have to move vehicles up and down. They're not bottoming out on the ramp. It's easy for them to navigate that for provisioning purposes of cruise ships. So the length of the ramp is the answer that reduces the angle.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And will you be needing to dredge more to maintain the draft below?
Very good question. So we looked at, if you look at around the current structure, there's no requirement to dredge to handle the draft for the design. In fact, this dock and the transfer span is long enough that it's pushing that floating structure slightly further out, which gets you into a little deeper water. The one thing that we need to make sure of is that what's underneath of the current structure does not interfere with the draft and the movement of the vessels. So we will look at, there might be a little bit of minor dredging that will be required just under where the existing pile system is of the current structure. So after that's been removed, we'll look at the water depths, and it's really, you know, we anticipate there will be a little bit of dredging just in that area where the existing facility sits, and maybe just behind that slightly, knowing that we're going from a 200-foot wide structure to a 100-foot float, and that's going to change the berthing pocket for the ships just slightly, because we're trying to make additional room for the cargo area and additional room for what's happening on the coal side, so we get ourselves a little bit larger pocket. So it's just a matter of looking at the bathymetry underneath of that area. So we're hopeful that it is minimal dredging at this point.
Might be a bit of coal piled up under there.
Coal for Christmas.
Yeah. So as Planning and Zoning Commission, we deal with several issues that come into play here. I noticed on slide 4, or slide 10, there was a large roof sign that says Seward, Alaska. Is that actually planned to have a big roof sign, or was that just a label on the slide?
No, I think the intent is that we would like to celebrate that you're in Seward, Alaska, and sometimes when you come into the port, you have no idea when you look out your cruise window, and the thought was that we could put a sign on the roof, and that then allows them to create, as I like to call them, Instagrammable moments, right? That they've arrived here in Seward and they can take a picture and share with their friends where they're visiting. So it is in the design of the building to actually have a sign on the roof, and if you notice the angle of the roof, it probably would not be visible from anywhere other than a plane going over or from a cruise ship window. So, because it will be high enough, and also the angle would not be visible from town as well.
I encourage you to confer with administration. I don't believe roof signs are allowed.
Okay, well, we will, obviously we have to go through that planning and zoning process
Right.
for the structure, so thank you for that.
And then it looked like on slide 11, the Seward terminal, you know, Seward, welcome, whatever, that one, the size might be oversized as well. So we tend to scale things down because we're a small town and you're going slow and you can see things, but I encourage you as you plan to be sure to confer with administration, so that you're not surprised to find out you can't do that. At one point, the angle was quite high. Is this now 34 feet high or below to be within our standards for maximum height?
Yeah, so we have contracted with Turner & Marine, who is building the facility for us, which is an Anchorage-based firm. They recently completed the terminal building in Whittier as well. And so what will happen in this process is that there will be an RFP that will go out for the building. The basis of design will be completed up to that process, so that we can then come and we will, obviously, all of those things, planning and zoning, rules and requirements, height limitations, offsets, all of those things will then be considered as you move into the final stages for basis of design into the RFP process. So rest assured, all of that will happen as part of this project. it's not going to be a kind of a rogue sort of construction. Obviously, we're here tonight as part of our effort to make sure that we're hearing what we need to hear, and also knowing as well that we're not bringing in an outside firm from Alaska. We're bringing in someone that is familiar with working here, is going to hire from here. Their employee base is Alaska-based. The engineering is all Alaska-based to ensure that we are mindful of Alaska. And also, I'm Alaska-based as well. I have an office in Anchorage, but also I live in Juneau, so been through the planning and zoning process, and so we'll definitely keep that in mind. But we are your neighbors, so.
One other thing that popped out to me was the parking. I know you're now moving that giant terminal back onto solid ground, which makes your parking lot much smaller. But it seemed that 48 car spaces was inadequate for what we have needed in the past. I just wanted to, you've lost a lot of that former parking space, but it doesn't seem to be adequate.
Yeah, we have been looking, Madam Chair, at the footprint, and we had originally, in this design, been forced to look at what is existing and the existing floor plan. I appreciate the feedback about more additional vehicles. Obviously, we have showing there as well as the number of bus spaces, and usually it's not a situation where that many buses are present. Like, for example, we have 6 shuttle spaces. But those shuttles usually are in rotation right within the town. So we are definitely interested in looking at the parking space. And then also through this process as well, the port is reimagining some of that space around and what's outside of our current boundary that's called the terminal. So we may need to look at some of those additional spaces and how that accommodates. And also we met as well with the city today, and one of the things we heard a lot about was the Port Avenue and the movement of passengers and how we integrate that into the design. We were out looking at today, and just a simple example is, the placement of the welcome sign to the port gives a little bit guests thinking they need to walk further than they really need to. So there's some very simple things that we can do in the design of the port that helps the wayfinding of passengers, and then also working through the master plan with the city about passenger movements. So all of those things we're looking at as the larger plan, and we've already scheduled a working session as well with the city to look at some of those areas. So parking definitely is a priority, and so I'm glad to hear your comments so that we can take that back to our engineering team that's handling. We have a dedicated parking designer who's been working on this to make sure that forward movement always happens, and also turning radiuses and all those things that I don't think about have been considered in the overall design. So thank you for that comment, and I'll take that back to our team.
Thank you. I have a question that perhaps Christy might like to take, and you can just pass to the microphone if
Okay, thank you.
can answer. So connecting the existing Port Avenue with Airport Avenue to increase safety and get the industrial traffic off of existing Port Avenue.
Yes.
So my concern is the safety of when those pike trucks and everything connect with the highway off Airport Road, right by the 3 bridges.
Yeah. I mean, the site distances, so that's definitely the pictures that we have up, our conceptual plans. Like, we know that Port Avenue extension will be going out to the highway, but through that process, that'll be the determination on where that comes out. So does it cut through the old coal pond, is that the outlet, and then turn there, so there's different options through there. That's definitely conceptual, and as we move through with Murad on those final design plans, where that comes out, because we also have to consider, double trucks going over the tracks there with an uphill. So we're looking at all those things. It's definitely just to show what the intent is to get the road out that way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Just a clarification on the floating dock again. So this is a drive-down floating dock, and we really have needed one of these in Seward for a long time, just for our own use and service to the public. Is this going to be something that if approved in the off-season when the ships aren't there, that we would be able to, or some mariners would be able to use for their offloading?
Yeah, I mean,
capabilities?
we will utilize that dock in the off-season till the full extent. I mean, we're going to be looking for customers in the off-season. We'll be having barges there for maintenance, like we utilize that dock now. And, you know, we've talked to folks about the ferry coming in. So all those vessels, military vessels in the off-season, we're going to be utilizing that dock till its full capacity.
Okay, and you mentioned the electrical, that Seward is, as you know, has expanded their electric capacity, and we have a lot of money wrapped into it. So what, again, can you describe what role that you're playing with that, and is there going to be any more cost to the city on that?
Yeah, very good question.
As far as extending services to you?
Through the chair, if I may go back to your previous question as well about the facility, one of the things that you'll see with 748 feet is you have a longer service area on both sides than currently exists, so it will increase areas for usage with the railroad, which is going to be great. To the following question about cost, the reason we're going through this EPA process is that we are trying actually not to create any cost, but actually to create savings. Meaning that if we can connect the pier with shore power, it creates another large customer usage in the system. And that then is calculated within the rate. So I live in Juneau. When cruise ships are in town in the summer, our rate goes down because of a single dock being electrified. The other thing that we're also trying to consider is not only the rate reduction and the benefits of that, but also by plugging in that ship, the one thing that we want to ensure as the developer is that the power is not coming out of your outlet. Meaning that we want to make sure that we're not creating a drain on the grid by plugging in a ship. And the only way to really outsmart that is to put in a battery bank system. So as part of our proposal to EPA, we proposed battery banks so that what we're doing is we are absorbing or taking power off the grid during low usage, low peak times, so that when the ship comes in and plugs in, it's essentially running through the battery system, so it's not putting a drain on the grid at any peak time. Obviously, that works directly with your utility. That's managed so that we're not affecting the grid when we're taking power. It's very sophisticated. It's all computer controlled and managed so that way that this application and the positive effects of shore power, meaning reduction of residential costs for electricity, reduction of emissions, the improvements to fuel efficiency throughout the routing for the ship, all of those things can happen without affecting the end user here in Seward. So we're trying to take all those things into consideration. We are very excited that this effort is really being led by the city and city manager and taking a lead, and we are filling in the technical details that are what's required and working together to come out with the plan that's being submitted to the EPA.
Okay, and the electrical department's been involved in this, I think.
Yes.
We've upgraded our system to where we can light 3 times the power that we need right now.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
Yeah, and it's coming to the transfer station, and it's called Fort Raymond Substation. So there is plenty of wattage that's coming there. But then
It's going to be your own transformer.
Yeah, then that has to then get moved to the port, so there's high voltage lines that will then, but all of that is included in the EPA proposal so that there is no cost to move that power from the current transfer station to a new transfer station that would be required to essentially provide that level of power to the port area and the port facility.
So are the ships going to be obligated to be connecting to our shore power?
Yes, the answer to that is that, you can always say they are required, but they have the appetite, wherever there's shore power, they're going to plug in because of their requirements for emissions reduction, their standards, they're going to plug in. So any chance they get, they're going to plug into the system, and maybe I can hand that to Preston if you want to just mention about what your requirements are from Royal Caribbean and why you would do that.
Could we keep track of the time here, though? It's 7:44.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I'm taking it.
I think
scoot
the
over.
road closes at 8.
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Till 9.
Commissioner Hubbard,
9.
so
Well, 8 to 9.
there are a number of different ports around the world who do require shore power, meaning you have to have it on your ship, and when you're in port, you're required to take it. And we plug in many places that it's not mandatory and required. Of Seward would be one of those places. And one of the drivers for this project is the existing ship. All ships in the world are rated throughout the year, and they get a score, A, B, C, D, E, F. And in order to reduce the emissions and reach a score that's achievable, and these emissions ramp up from now until 2040 on the IMO level, so internationally. And so shore power is one of the ways that we reduce our emissions. And so as was said, any opportunity that we get, we will plug in, regardless if it's mandatory. One of the challenges of making it mandatory legally is that then the utility company and the power company has less flexibility in peak seasons and downtimes when the community needs that power. So I think the right solution is we will absolutely plug in, but we also want to be mindful of the impact that we would have on the community if that's required.
And what percentage of ships, we get 90 ships a year plus, what percentage is Royal Caribbean come?
Currently, I would say we're around 40% of the calls that are here with our brands. So that's Royal Caribbean International, Celebrity, and Silver Sea ships. And we will be more than that amount as Norwegian leaves and goes to Whittier, and we continue to come here.
Thank you.
Yes.
I thank you very much for taking the time to present this to the commission and to the public via YouTube. A lot of amazing things happening in this future.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be here, and we look forward to coming back. And once again, if you have any other questions, feel free to comment on sewardcompany.com. There is a comment area that comes directly to my inbox. So anything you have, and we look forward to coming back and keeping you abreast of this exciting project.
Thank you very much. Okay. There are no other reports or presentations, so we'll move on to public hearings. The first public hearing is Resolution 2024-012. And could the clerk please read the title into the record?
Certainly. Resolution 2024-012 of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Seward, Alaska, granting a conditional use permit to OLV LLC to construct and operate a camper park on the Point Subdivision, Tract A, that point thereof lying within the Seward city limits, located at 1823 Nash Road, within an industrial zoning district.
I'm not sure what happened to our public. So I need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-012.
I'll second.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to, if I would like to make this substitute resolution, at what point would I move for that?
I would recommend having the public hearing first and then close the public hearing and then wait till it comes back to the commission.
Okay.
Because what the substitute resolution is essentially a collection of amendments that you would be making anyway at that point in the meeting.
Okay, very good, thank you. So administration, do you have any comments?
Yes. So I'd like to direct your attention to page 38 in the packet. If you're looking at the PDF version, probably 37 if you have a hard copy. And this shows the property map of the location where this proposed camper park CUP would be. And it's located right on the boundary of the city limits, so half of the property in the northern half is actually located in the borough, and the southern half is located within the city, which is zoned industrial. And many of you know that this property has actually been used for camping and parking for many years, but it was never properly permitted. The property has since changed ownership, and the new owner is coming forward now with the proper process of permitting this camper park, which involves a conditional use permit as required by the land uses allowed table, and then an administrative permit which is issued by the city clerk's office. And that administrative permit is required to abide by Title 8, which is referenced in here, Title 8.15, Article 4, camper parks. The current requirements or recommended conditions for this CUP are that the access roads into and through the camper park shall be constructed and maintained at a minimum width of 26 feet. And this is, of course, for emergency vehicles to get in and access the park. And then that an emergency vehicle parking and staging area shall be designated along the southwest end of the property and marked as such to prevent any other vehicles from parking in that location. And this has also come as a recommendation from the fire chief, since there have been emergency calls in this area in the past, and it's very difficult to get down to where these individuals need assistance if there isn't a designated area, because just the number of vehicles and people in that area. So having this requirement would be essential for the safety of all.
Thank you very much. We did have a member of the public here. I wonder, did you?
I tried to find him.
Okay, that's too bad. Okay, well.
I'll go look out front one more time.
Why don't we wait just a second? I believe he was interested in commenting on this, but he disappeared.
And Madam Chair, sorry, then I do know Phil Zimmerman, who submitted the application, was busy tonight and sent his partner, Mark Nelson, who was the member here, to speak to it, but.
Okay. Hopefully we can find him.
Can I get some can I ask some questions while we're waiting, or should we wait until?
Okay.
I don't know.
Thank you for
Sorry,
checking.
I went out.
Thank you very much. We're going to have to proceed without him because he's gone. So, questions for administration?
Yes, through the chair, to the staff, hasn't this has been approved before, hasn't it, for this particular camper
No.
park? It hasn't?
Yeah, it has not received a conditional use permit in the past to operate as a camper park.
Okay, but as you said before, they've been functioning as that, but they've never really been licensed, right?
Correct.
It looks like you've learned a lot from that. It's very comprehensive, all the conditions.
Yes.
It's impressive.
So, what are the wishes of the commission? Oh, no, wait. Now we have to open the public hearing. Is anyone signed in to speak?
No one has signed in to speak for the
Okay.
public hearing item.
So I'm going to open it. Is anyone in the audience wishing to speak? Hearing no one, the public hearing is closed. What are the wishes of the commission?
Well, did you want to bring forward this?
Would you like to?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to bring forward the substitution that was presented as laid out.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Clerk, do we need to vote on that? Or do we proceed with discussion?
Well, if we vote on it, that would be the final vote to approve the substitute resolution.
Okay.
So I would recommend
now we'll
having your
have
discussion
Very good.
on the substitute version.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the substitute resolution 2024-012?
What's got substituted, I'm sorry?
It was the laydown?
Right, but what compared to the first one?
There's more conditions.
Okay. I didn't compare them all. But
There's a good deal of conditions, and, you know, they've gone through the road witness with the city and the fire department, so I'm fine with that. You got fair wear information, you know, it's a pretty put together list of conditions, and I feel like they went pretty well for this area, considering that the area didn't have anything to begin with. So I think we're really upgrading the area and making it a better place for people to use and better access for people and for emergency responders.
Yeah, my comment is related to the parking, I guess. Looking at it, with the existing berm there, I'm not sure that this parking plan as laid out will work, but because it's an open area, I feel like it's pretty easy to restructure it. So as long as we have these recommended conditions, I'm okay with letting the applicant rework it as they see fit to meet these conditions. That's my kind of only concern with it.
I did a site visit this morning, and it was very interesting to me to see how the big berms of gravel that you can see from Nash Road along Sawmill Creek extend all the way down. And so there is, on condition 5, it was to retain this vegetative buffer, but lo and behold, there's a 10-foot high at least berm of gravel, and then those telephone poles, the power poles start. So I would like to strike condition 5. I did talk to the flood board, and they said this map shows clearly, a nice vegetated buffer, but that was then. Now the flood board is needing to go in there continually with big machines and clear out that creek so that it doesn't back up and flood the subdivisions. So I believe there will never be a chance for a nice riparian vegetated buffer because it's just a gravel emergency when it floods. So I would like to strike condition 5 and renumber.
Chair Griswold, for the clerk here, can you tell me where I could find that in the substitute resolution laydown?
Page 3.
That would be page 3.
Of the following conditions?
Yes,
Correct.
number 5.
So the buffer of at least 10 feet,
Right.
you'd like to strike that from the,
Right.
okay. And so this would be an amendment to the substitute resolution. So could I get a motion and a second to strike
Okay.
condition 5?
Thank you. I move to strike condition 5 of the conditions.
Second that.
So per discussion, you said which stabilizes the bank and provides essential fish and wildlife habitat. Has the Fish and Game been involved, or have they observed that? Because usually that's kind of their call, correct?
They are probably involved. This isn't a cataloged anadromous stream, and I assume that the flood board has all the permits required for them to go in there with machines, probably in a fish window, to push and remove gravel.
Yeah, the flood
So maybe
board-
this was kind of a moot point anyway.
Yeah, the
It
flood
is,
board's
it
getting in
is
there.
now after it. I was basing it on these lovely graphics that show it, but they're obviously older aerial photos. That doesn't exist anymore.
Now, the flood board's getting in there all the time, moving gravel back and forth
Yeah.
to maintain
Yeah.
and keep that stream kind of where it is. Otherwise, it's gonna jump out of there. And if they're okay with removing that berm, and I'm sure that they have all the permits to get in.
Who's they?
The
Who's
flood
making?
board.
So they're contracting people to go in there and get that
Yes,
cleaned
yeah,
out.
so they hold the permits to get people in the river, and they're in and out of it all the time. And if they're okay with moving the berm, and it's not gonna, like Carol said, a riparian zone's not really gonna function there correctly as long as that river is in constant flux.
Okay.
And now should we call for the vote on that amendment?
Okay, ready to vote on the amendment to strike condition 5. Hubbard,
Yes?
Charbonneau,
Yes.
Hornseth,
Yes.
and Chair Griswold.
Yes.
Okay, that amendment has been approved. Condition 5 will be stricken from the resolution, and the main motion is back on the floor to approve the substitute resolution.
Well, I really like Commissioner Hornseth's recommendation to let them establish these 30 by 50 RV sites. There's 37 of them. As they see fit, as long as they conform to our required 26-foot wide access aisles and our code for the parking. It's, you know, they have to comply with our parking code. Because the on-site visit showed that these lower slots, these lower sites, go up on into the berm, and they go. There's a power line that goes through here, power poles, and it's just not. It's not the same as what you see on this map. So right now, these sites are not 50 feet deep. They'd be about 20 feet deep, which isn't nearly enough. So I was wondering if the fire chief could come up and maybe answer some questions. Would that be okay with the commission?
Yeah, Miami.
Thank you. So my question is, we want public safety, health and safety here. So you requested 26-foot wide access to a staging area.
Yep.
And do you also want to be able to loop around to get out so you don't have to do a cul-de-sac turnaround?
The
Or-
times that we've been there, there's been plenty of room to turn around if we can just get a parking space.
Okay,
I'm not saying that necessarily need any additional turnaround. My thought was this, and when you see it in the summer, it's plenty wide enough because they're bringing in big RVs and trucks with trailers. So there's definitely, if they can bring the big RVs in, they can bring a fire truck in,
Okay.
was my thought.
okay.
So I think as long as we just have a dedicated space that we can park when we get there, getting out should be no problem.
Okay.
That was just my thought.
And would your department be working with the building inspector and the planning or the community development to make sure that there is adequate room? I'm really concerned about how these don't line up with reality, these neat little rectangles. They go up onto this giant
Yeah,
berm.
and I think it was probably just difficult for, they're just trying to draw the best they could with what they
Yeah,
had to draw
okay.
with. But just
Okay.
from history of being out there on calls, it seems like there's quite a bit of room.
Good.
A lot of stretch, elbow
Okay.
room to stretch your legs and really turn around. Like I said, these people are bringing in fifth wheels, and they're not having any problems getting in and out. So
Okay.
it's a little deceiving on how it's drawn up.
Right,
Than when you're actually out there in the summer and see that, yeah, it's pretty spread out.
okay. And
Just
you
my
feel
opinion.
confident they'll have 10 feet of separation between units with a plan
It's
similar
supposed
to
to be
this?
10 feet between.
10 feet.
They're-
Yeah, that's a Title 8 requirement then,
Yeah, they're-
it's 10 feet of space between
Yeah,
camper
they're
units.
30, I mean, your truck's not any wider than 9 foot, so.
Plenty of space.
It's space,
Good.
yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for the chief?
No, not for the chief.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
That's
ma'am.
good to know. Okay?
But I agree with Commissioner Hornseth as well. This is an old sat image with a drawing on it, and the CUP here and our code has the proper information to basically make this work for the fire department and for the people that are there. So I think this could be a little bit fluid as long as it
Right.
adheres to what we put down. I think we're going to get what we want. Something that's easy for everybody and that the fire and emergency response can get in and do what they need to do.
Very good. Are we ready to call for the vote?
Just a
Go ahead.
quick clarification, is this, does this have to be reviewed every year, or is it going into perpetuity, or?
The conditional use permit is valid for the life of the use. The administrative permit does need to be renewed annually.
Okay. Is there any consideration for the fish waste? I don't know. I think that's an issue.
It is a big issue, and I don't know how to resolve it. Do you have any suggestions?
Well, we get a lot of fish waste, just natural fish waste coming up in the fall when the humpies show up. But there's gonna be a lot of cleaning and stuff down there. I don't know, he's gonna have to find a way to mitigate that, I think, just for the comfort of his own.
Well, he's operating a campground at an RV park, so there's some form of disposal, otherwise it would be
You'll
quite
have dumpsters.
it would be quite a place if
Yeah,
it
he'll have
isn't. So
dumpsters.
I think I believe there's a spot in here for bear information. What did I say? I think I saw someone about
Well, bear aware signs. Yeah,
for reasons of
but
refuge containers shall be
Oh, yeah.
provided. Yeah, so section 3.
Don't feed the bears negligently, leave human food.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bear-resistant refuge containers shall be provided between May 1st, May 15 and September 15. So there's a point for number 3.
Yeah, I feel like the conditions reflect pretty closely what we have, what we ask of people, and what the city asks of people at the city parks, and such as Spring Creek, it's very similar, what they provide, their signage and refuse containers, so. Or at least consistent in that way.
Are we ready to call for the vote?
Yes.
Please.
Okay, so this will be the final vote for substitute resolution 2024-012 as amended. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Mornseth,
Yes.
and Chair Griswold.
Yes,
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
thank you. Next, we have Resolution 2024-011. Clerk, would you please read that into the title, into the record?
Resolution 2024-011 of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Seward, Alaska, recommending City Council approval of a horizontal layout for the printed versions of the official Seward zoning map, which will display all zoned lands within the Seward city limits.
Did I skip one?
Oh, whoops. Sorry,
Thank you.
2024-0110.
Right, I'm sorry.
Okay, starting over.
Yes, thank you.
Resolution 2024-010 of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Seward, Alaska, recommending the City Council amend Seward City Code 15.10.226 Land Uses Allowed Table, prohibiting cluster subdivisions in all zoning districts.
Thank you. I will open the public hearing. Has anyone signed in to speak?
Chair Griswold, did administration want to provide an intro to that before the public hearing?
I'm sorry, I'm skipping. I have too many papers going here. Yes, city
Oh,
administration
and
report.
one more thing, sorry. Could we get a motion and a second for that one?
May I have a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-010.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Now we're back on track. City administration report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As stated in the resolution and agenda statement, the purpose and definition of a cluster subdivision is to reduce lot size in order to accommodate or preserve space for recreation or preventing hazardous areas, use of hazardous areas for residential or other development, or to provide green space. However, when we had a discussion on planned developments with the commission voiced that there would not be a situation where they would like to see smaller lots than is currently allowed in Seward City Code in residential areas, which right now, the minimum lot size in a residential area is 6,000 square feet in past Phoenix Road, and then in town, 3,000 square feet. So what this resolution proposes is to amend the land uses allowed table. And just for clarification, if you look on page 13 in a printed packet or page 14 on your PDF version, the key to the land uses allowed table states that if a row is left blank and listed as intentionally left blank, then that means that that use is prohibited in all of the zoning districts. So from our discussion with the commission wanting to prohibit cluster subdivisions in the city of Seward, the way to do that isn't to just delete it from our code, but it's to state it in the land uses allowed table and then say that that it's intentionally left blank, which then means that cluster subdivisions are not allowed in any of the zoning districts. And then just add to clarification, which I think might be a proposed amendment to this resolution, that there are no current cluster subdivisions within the city of Seward right now.
Any questions for administration?
Why is that not something that you would desire? What was the recommendation? Can you give me a little history behind that?
Yeah, it just boils down to that the purpose of a cluster subdivision is to reduce lot sizes in order to leave space for green space.
Yeah.
So the commission doesn't want to see lot sizes smaller than what is currently allowed in code. So it's still, a developer could still leave undeveloped areas of a subdivision for park or other green space.
So he could design then a cluster type subdivision?
Yes, as long as it abided by our current regulations for lot size.
Okay, as long as they were 6,000 square feet still?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And now I will open the public hearing. Does anyone sign in to speak?
Nobody is signed in.
Does anyone in the audience wish to speak? I now close the public hearing. What are the wishes of the commission?
Well, we spoke about this for a little while in the work session, last work session, I believe. And we all pretty much came to the conclusion that it wasn't really something that we wanted to see. Small lots, houses jammed in there. So I'm happy with the way this is going.
That's my recollection.
I would like to make a small amendment, and that would be on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right below the 6th whereas, to say whereas currently there are no cluster subdivisions in the city, and I think that's just, well, go ahead. That's my motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. I just think it's important to note, as Courtney mentioned, we don't have any, so it's not going to impact any current subdivision.
Well, so if someone came in to do a new subdivision area, and they could make 6,000 lots, but they could arrange it like a cluster, like a cluster subdivision, but they would have to contend with the extra land and make it more like an HOA, because who takes care of that extra area, right? Because the idea behind a cluster subdivision is that that extra area would be a common use area for all the residents in a say a new subdivision, and they lay them out. It's not always just necessarily a grid, but
They're cutting down on lot size in order to make a center area. And we're basically saying that lot
a
sizes
common
are-
use green space kind of
lot
thing.
sizes are already as small as we want them to be in a particular area. So if they wanted to arrange them and put green space in the middle, they could still do that, but they would have to adhere with the lot size that we have right now.
Yeah, so, but the clustered subdivision, is it the same, I mean, does it connect with, it has to be, or does it mandate a 6,000 square? I mean, we could, it's a 6,000, we want a minimum of 6,000 square foot lot, right? No matter what the subdivision.
North of Phoenix.
North of Phoenix.
South of Phoenix is 3,000 square feet minimum. So I feel that we're not taking away of that option to provide more amenities for that subdivision. We're just restricting it to these minimums. So minimum lot size of
Yeah.
6,000 north and 3,000 south.
Yeah, it just seems like you could do that without like specifying, because I guess I was looking it up, and cluster subdivisions are, it's more of a design thing, and then the idea that the builder or the developer is having, it's a common or a collective green space that the residents can use.
However the developer wants to present
Yeah.
it.
And they can still do that as long as they keep the lot size at 6,000
Correct.
feet.
Chair
Yes.
Griswold, if I may, I just want to remind you, the amendment is currently on the floor for
okay.
whereas number 6.
Okay,
So try to
sorry.
keep the discussion specific to
Okay, thank
the
you.
amendment.
Any more discussion on that amendment?
No.
Which reads, whereas currently there are no cluster subdivisions in the city and, could I call for the vote?
And just to clarify for the clerk, this is the whereas that currently reads cluster subdivisions are currently allowed.
It would come right after that as a separate whereas?
Oh, so insert that
Oh, you're
there?
creating a new whereas? I thought you were, sorry, I thought you were adding to that whereas. So
Well, whereas tend to get super long, so let me read the one right before that. Whereas cluster subdivisions are currently allowed in single-family, two-family, and multifamily residential zoning districts with an approved conditional use permit. And then I was thinking it's a little bit different
okay,
concept.
so it's a new
And
whereas.
whereas currently there are no cluster subdivisions in the city.
Okay, got it.
Call for the vote, please.
Okay, voting just on this amendment to add the whereas. Hubbard,
Yes.
Charbonneau,
Yes.
Hornseth,
Yes.
and Chair Griswold.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is passed, and the main motion as amended is back on the floor.
Does the commission have any other amendments?
No.
Okay, let's call for the vote on the main motion.
Okay, final vote for Resolution 2024-010 as amended. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Hornseth,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
and Chair Griswold.
Yes,
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
thank you. Moving on to our next public hearing, Resolution 2024-011 of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Would the clerk please read the title into the record?
Resolution 2024-011, a resolution of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Seward, Alaska, recommending City Council approval of a horizontal layout for the printed version of the official Seward zoning map, which will display all zoned lands within the Seward city limits.
Thank you. May we have the city administration
Oh,
report?
could we get a motion and a
Oh,
second,
geez.
please?
I'm skipping around here.
I move to
I
approve.
need a motion and a second. Oh, my
Okay,
place.
I move to approve resolution 2024-011.
I'll second.
Thank you. Administration, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The resolution approving this horizontal layout of the zoning map, just want to clarify, is not changing any of the zoning, is just addressing the layout. Currently, the layout for the printed zoning map is a vertical layout, and it primarily focuses in on the west side of Resurrection Bay and then does little call-out maps for SMIC, but entirely misses a middle portion of Nash Road and then the outlying areas that are within city limits, both on the far east side and far west side. of the city. So it's really important that we have a zoning map, a printed version of the zoning map that encompasses the entire city limits, as this is the map that is included in our comprehensive plan. We do have, of course, the online version of our zoning map, which can be easily zoomed in, zoomed out, to get all that, the scale and content. But having the printed version all on the same scale and on the same page is important, and so that's what this resolution is moving to do, that the printed version will now be what is shown on page 27 of the packet. I also have a couple copies here as well printed out that you can look at.
Thank you. Any questions for administration?
Is it too late to put Nash Road in there?
No, and yeah, we can make that adjustment.
Yeah, it just kind of helps us see.
And
where
we will put in the word
access is.
Nash Road, but it won't be drawn on the map as it is just showing what's within city limits. But we will put in the name Nash Road and that portion of Nash Road that is in that.
So you can't illustrate how that, well, I guess it would take up too much room on the map.
Well, we're just looking at what's in city limits.
True.
So we just want to see the borders of city limits.
Okay, but you will mark Nash Road. It just shows a little piece of it over there on the.
Yeah, we will mark that.
Okay.
But-
Any other questions, administration?
No.
Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing. Has anyone signed in to speak?
No one has signed in.
Is anyone in the audience wishing to speak? Hearing none, I close the public hearing. What are the wishes of the commission?
We went over this, I don't know, a couple work sessions ago, I think now. And we all agreed that we needed to have one particular map. I think this is a fantastic map. It's concise. I like the section here with the revisions and their dates and the numbering, corresponding numbers onto the map. The addition of the Nash Road is on portion of it right here down at the bottom, but yeah, I think it works well.
No comment.
Okay. I did have a few amendments to this. On page 24, the third whereas, I moved it to add at the end, and uses different scales. And I will read that in its entirety. Whereas the current printed vision of this official land use and zoning map is displayed in vertical format, does not show the entire city limits, and uses different scales, and if I could get a second, I will
I'll
explain
second
that. Okay. To me, one of the big improvements to this map is that it's all the same scale. So instead of having a little insert in the corner, like Alaska and Hawaii in the corner of the Pacific Ocean, we do see SMIC in its full scale. We see the whole city limits in its same scale. And I think that's a really important improvement that I would like to highlight as a difference. So by saying, whereas the current printed version of the official land use and zoning map is displayed in vertical format, does not show the entire city limits, and uses different scales. And if I could amend my motion, I'd like to add a related, the sixth whereas the new layout is a horizontal layout rather than vertical, which includes the entire city limits and uses a uniform scale. And
Could we do these separately, please?
would you like to? Okay, so let's, never mind that one. So I'd just like to amend the third whereas, which discusses the deficiencies of the current vertical, or the current horizontal layout, or vertical layout.
We ready to vote on the amendment to the addition of and uses different scales?
Yes.
Okay, voting on that amendment only to the third whereas. Hornseth,
Yes.
Charbonneau,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
and Chair Griswold.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is passed, and The main motion as amended is back on the floor.
I would like to propose a second amendment to the sixth whereas to read, whereas the new layout is a horizontal layout rather than vertical, which includes the entire city limits and uses a uniform scale. And, okay, thank you. Any discussion?
No, that makes sense.
Call for the vote.
Can you read that again, please, one more time?
Sure can. Sixth whereas, whereas the new layout is a horizontal layout rather than vertical, which includes the entire city limits and uses a uniform scale, and
Okay, ready to vote on that amendment? Okay, voting on the amendment to whereas number 6 to use a uniform scale at the end of the sentence. Hubbard,
Yes.
Charbonneau,
Yes.
Hornseth,
Yes.
and Chair Griswold.
yes.
Okay, that motion is passed, and the main motion with 2 amendments is back on the floor.
Any further discussion from the commission?
No.
Let's call for the vote.
Okay, this is the final vote for Resolution 2024-011 as amended. Hornseth,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Charbonneau,
Yes.
and Chair Griswold.
Yes,
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
thank you. Unfortunately, we don't have any more public hearings because I'm just getting the hang of it. So now we'll move on to unfinished business. And there is no unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business. There are no resolutions, and under new business, we will now discuss to reschedule the upcoming planning and zoning meeting dates. And would you like to speak to that, administration?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. There are 3 meeting dates at the back end of the year where there are various elections taking place, and so we will not have access to the city clerk or this room, and so we've put together some options here on the last page of the packet, so page 43. And I'll run through those 3 and just kind of get the commission's feedback on that. The first one is on Tuesday, August 20th, and this is a work session date. And so with that being a work session, this one's pretty easy to keep if we just move the location. And so Claire is working with the library to book a room in the library, and so we can move that one over to that session and keep the same date and time for that one. The next one is Tuesday, October 1st, and October is a nice month for this to happen because there are 5 Tuesdays in October, and so we're able to, so our recommendation would be to actually push back both October dates a week, and so instead of having a meeting on the 1st and the 15th, the meetings would take place on the 8th and the 22nd. And then the last one would be the national presidential election, Tuesday, November 5th. And, our first thought was to move that back a week. However, that following Monday is Veterans Day, and so City Council has pushed their meeting back to that Tuesday, so we don't have that option to move it back a week, and we didn't want to have it on that election day, and so our proposed option for that one is to just at the November 19th work session, just to do a double header, do like a work session when we do 5:30 to 6:45 and have the regular meeting at 7 to follow.
For what day?
That would be
November 5th.
No.
Okay.
Well, November
No.
19th would
Sorry,
be the reschedule.
19th.
5th is.
Right,
yeah.
reschedule. Comments from the commission? Do those dates work for everybody?
I'm fine with all those. August 20th, I won't be here, but besides that,
Okay.
the rest seem fine.
Those all sound good to me right now.
Okay.
So our work session's always at 6, and then the regular meetings are at 7. That's
Usually.
Okay, I'm new here, so.
For the double header, it would be 5:30.
We provide pizza for those, so.
Right, double header with pizza.
All right.
Sweeten the deal.
Okay, so no meeting on that one. Just one meeting in November then?
Yes.
Well, if there's no objection from the commission, we can call it good, or you could call for a roll call vote if you really wanted to make it extra official.
Is it okay with you,
Yeah.
Rhonda? Okay, good. Okay, we have consensus.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. The next item is to discuss work session topics for May 21st, and that's up to you.
Yeah, I've got a couple things for that day, as well as a number, there's some wiggle room too, and there's a number of important topics that will need to be discussed over the next few months, and so it'd be helpful to get some direction from the commission as well on what you'd like to discuss. But one thing we are penciling in is an update, or the presentation from the borough, who will be updating the current existing Seward hazard mitigation plan. And so the borough is taking over that project, and they are asking to meet for the first hour of that work session, and we'll be inviting the public to participate in the planning process by assisting in the identification and community concerns related to hazards, locations of concern, hazard mitigation opportunities, and hazard mitigation goals. And so they're conducting a series of meetings, and that is kind of a time-sensitive thing, which the administration has pushed us to work with them on, and so that will definitely be there. One project personally I've been working on as a new staff member, with Claire being a new staff member, we've got some new commissioners, and hopefully filling that last spot is there. I've been trying to understand just the process of how things work, and so there is a rules of procedure document that I'm not sure if you even knew existed, because it was created in 2008, amended a couple times, lastly in 2014. Old enough that there's not even a Word document of it. Fortunately, when I've had good conversations about process with the city clerk, he was able to provide me just a PDF scan.
There it is. I never leave home without it.
Yeah, it's a great read.
Distinctive black cover art.
And so I've been in my free-ish time in the office, I go through that document to help me understand this process, but it references city code, which a lot of the overall theme of the code has remained the same, but the verbiage has changed. And so at first I thought this would be just a simple update code, but then it was become more extensive as I've talked with the city clerk about what they're doing with the city council. And so what I would like to do at this work session is just put that document in the packet, and if you're strapped for time, don't feel like you need to read through the whole thing. There's basically two options we can go with this. It's one, just to amend it as is, or two, on advice from the city clerk, since this is an old document, we could potentially just scrap it and start from scratch. And if I were to do that, I would kind of create a new format that would maybe more align with the agenda, and I would compare it with the city council's rules of procedure to kind of get them to match up, which would be more of an undertaking, and I just don't want to start that project until I get direction from the commission. So I just it'd be more of a 5-10 minute conversation to show you the document and then get your thoughts on ways and what direction you'd like us to improve it, because it needs updating because it's old and out of date. And so those would probably cover half of the meeting. And so other things that could come up, one, let's talk about sign code real quick, because that last work session, I just don't think it's how do I put it? I don't think we have the time to go line by line like we did with that revamp of it. And so I did some digging, as I know the commission has been working on that long before I even started. And so the original reason planning and zoning was asked to look at signage was, one, because the mayor was worried about conflicting language in different parts of city code in terms of awnings and where they are allowed in code, and then also dealing with temporary signage in reference to flag banners and the boardwalk area. And so I think we need direction from the commission on where you want to go with this, because if the commission wants to keep going line by line, I think we need to kind of pull it back and put it up with all the other priorities and see where it lines up, because I don't think it would kind of go to the top of that list. And so Courtney's been working on updating based on the several work sessions that you've had, the feedback that Carol, the Chair Griswold provided, which was excellent, and the conversation of the last one. And so we can potentially bring that up at a next meeting, or maybe knock it out with one more work session where instead of going line by line, we'd send you the update and then have you just kind of pull out in that meeting things that you really want to talk about, so that we can get that ironed out. So before I go to the other topics, I'd just like some direction from the commission on where you want sign code to go.
What are the wishes of the commission?
Well, I thought we made some progress at last work session, and we gave you a lot of information, and you are going to assimilate that into a document. And so, yeah, I think what you had suggested, that if we could see the outcome of that, and then we can get a copy of that, and then the next time meeting, we'll be prepared to pick and choose what we want to highlight again, or amend, or add to, or consider. That sound fair? What do you think?
Yeah, would it be helpful to send you the current draft from all the work sessions and recommendations? And then if it still feels like there's going to be a lot of amendments or additions to that draft, then we can kind of plan for future work sessions. Or if the feedback we get then after you see the draft is, we can knock this out in 30 minutes, addressing a couple more points.
Yeah.
Does that?
Does that leave the work session for May 21st in limbo, though? Because we wouldn't know if that sign code draft is ready or not. Because you would give us your draft sooner.
2 weeks.
And then we would look it over, and then we'd say, it needs so much more work.
I think
Push it back to June, or, can we do it in an hour? That's my question. Does it leave it in limbo that way?
I mean, I guess that's up to you on the feedback that you have on it. And so I don't think our plan would be have it at the next work session. Maybe it's to maybe send it out and see what feedback you have, and that can help us determine if we can bring it up at a future meeting or if we need to pencil in a work session. I just think if we do multiple work sessions, it's just gonna get pushed pretty far down the priority list.
I'd be
with
very
other
interested
things.
to see what you've drafted so far.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be ready to tackle on the 21st.
No.
We'd probably get more done just pecking away at it, and like you said, if we need another work session, we can.
Okay. Great. And then some other topics, flood mitigation, I think would be a beneficial topic. Just some history on this. My first week on the job, I met with Nick Chapman, who is the, what's his position? Programs manager for the Seward Bear Creek Flood Service Area Board. And they had an engineering firm put together a memorandum dealing with the flooding issues on Scheffler Creek and different mitigation options to combat that. And I know that their board is able to tackle some of it. Some of it they can't. There'll be more within city jurisdictions. And so, and I've had some just conversations with residents coming out to their property to have conversations about the flooding, specifically on Degraff Road and the way that landscape has been changing. And so that topic would fit mostly with the hazard mitigation plan, so that might be a good option for the May one. And Nick Chapman said if he's available, I can see if he's available, he'd be willing to come chat through the Scheffler Creek document. And that might come across more as like what you did with the signage at the Jeep Trailhead, in terms of like providing city council, hey, we've listened to residents and heard from the service board, and these are recommendations we're giving city council to really look into. And so that's one option. My first work session with you all was doing that comprehensive plan update, and so we've been working with direction from City Council to kind of overhaul the comprehensive plan. So our office is meeting every week to kind of brainstorm ideas. We've currently been reviewing several different plans from other cities, and we've kind of put together some format ideas and different statistical information that we've been kind of just brainstorming that would be helpful in that plan. So at some point, we kind of want to throw that information to the commission to see, get your recommendations, and if we've missed anything in that. Housing, obviously housing's always a big priority here. Commissioner Hornseth met with us a while back about some ideas he had, and that coincided with a pretty good presentation Nicole Lawrence put forth and presented to PACAB, and specifically dealing with the Public Works building that will be vacated and what to do with that lot, which is going to be some time away, and so it's not a pressing need. However, the city's already put in like utility lines for like single family housing units there, but based on her research, there might be some better options there, so it might be good to have that conversation sooner than later to pass on any recommendations to City Council for that. And then we've had Commissioner Hubbard come in and talk to us with a few residents about cannabis use in town and what that looks like within city code, which would be like I think a hot topic issue, but definitely within land use. And so if the commission wants to have that conversation, I think we would just need some time to do a lot of research on what other cities are doing, the Alaska statutes and et cetera, et cetera. But if that's the direction the commission would like, we are happy to do that research and present that information to you. Courtney, you want to speak on the generators?
Yeah, then the generator issue and code is just mobile vendors currently have no limitations on using generators, but transient merchants are not allowed to use generators. They have to hook into electric power. And so just seeing if that is something the commission wants to address it or allow for either certain periods or times of day, or if the commission is fine with how code currently stands for generators.
Sorry. Have we had any complaints, or where is this coming from?
I mean, so there is a business owner operating or wanting to operate in the vacant lot just across from the Sea Life Center, was asking about being able to use generators during the 4th of July. The rest of the season, they were going to be able to hook up to electric, but during the 4th of July, they were going to have additional vendors on their property, which they wouldn't be allowed to use generators since they are not mobile vendors, they're transient merchants. So yeah, just looking at if there is time frames during, say, holidays or times of day that would be okay for generators for transient merchants.
It's quite a list.
And last one more.
Oh,
The group that's putting on the workshop on Thursday regarding the transportation safety issues, they do want to come back and have a conversation with you all and the public as a follow-up to their project. And their timeline was May or June, but since we've got the hazard mitigation plan lined up for May, we're going to pencil them in for the beginning of the June work session. It's a lot of topics. Right now, we currently don't have anything of official business on the June 4th meeting date, so there's always potential to swap that around to a work session to tackle these, but lots of important issues. And so we'll definitely do the hazard mitigation and rules of procedure for the first half of the work session. Our recommendation would be like the flood mitigation maybe for the second half, but happy to have your thoughts and can maybe pencil some things in for the next couple months out of this list as well.
I suppose whatever's most important, put it to the top, and it seems like some of these could be doubled on with some others, just so that we take up the full amount of time and don't waste a portion of it by finishing early. Recommendation.
Yeah.
So do you think the hazard mitigation plan review, the rules of procedure overview, and the flood mitigation topics would fill our work session?
On the 21st.
I believe so, yeah. I'd have to confirm that with Nick Chapman, and so I'd
Okay.
get on that right away.
Okay.
But yeah,
They're all important, they're all very important topics.
Yeah. Pack them in, there's no reason to go home early.
I know.
On the housing piece, I'm just catching up on the history of what's going on, what went on out at Forest Acres, and where there's, the utilities are still pending out there, and some of the issues there, but is that something that can be readdressed? I think I need to sit down with you first and kind of talk about that, because it's a shame that there's all those lots up there and there's no utilities and nothing's going on. And we get lot owners that are really stuck.
yeah.
And I know there was an attempt last year, but it got shot down, but I need to get up to speed on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could fill a whole work session this summer with the housing conversation, and I know the focus for you all in my short time here has been looking at that issue and how do we prevent that from happening in the future, but I think that's a great point, is like, we still have people that are stuck in this situation, and I think that's a fair topic for you all to discuss, if there's a way to help in that scenario, and so yeah, we'd be happy to sit down and share what we know.
Yeah. And I've been I'm planning to talk to some lot owners up there too. And I've heard some testimony at earlier meetings too, so it just doesn't seem right. And there should be more development up there, and it should be on its way.
No, actually, the housing topic was almost going to be what we'd recommend for this one, but these other things came up, and then I know Commissioner Hornstadt came to us specifically to talk about those issues, and he won't be here for that next one, so I'd want to make sure that he's available to discuss his ideas, because he had some good ideas in there. Which brings up a good point, if Commissioner Hornstadt is not there at the next work session, are the other three of you planning on attending
I will be there?
On the 21st.
on the 21st?
But are you saying can we make the June meeting, the first meeting, a work session too?
If we have no official business, Mr. Clerk, is that accurate? Or?
That would be a first for me. I mean, our minutes would be on there to get approved. but
Okay, gotcha.
That might be the only thing on
We
there
can call it a
that,
double header again.
Yeah,
Would that be the better way to do it? Okay. I should have run that by.
oh, it's okay.
There's a good chance that we are for May, but I'm not 100% sure yet, for May 21st.
Okay.
Is there, on the use of the generators, are you looking for some sort of like conditional thing? Like you said, if there's festivals, is there a opportunity to, give that a pass for these people that are just coming in for certain times? And then I know there's food trucks that use generators too, a lot, and then you also have it like during the Mermaid Festival. Sometimes there's lingering food trucks there too that will use those. And I don't know if that's legal or if that's accepted, given
Sounds
the
like it
current
needs
code.
to be put in a work session topic.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's been allowed during the Mermaid Festival and 4th of July, and they are inspected by the fire chief. I talked to him, and they do have to abide by certain code for generator use. However, according to the land use is allowed and regulations for transient merchants, it wouldn't be allowed.
As far as the timeline, this would be a code change, a code amendment. So it would have to go through us, public hearing, and then it would have to go through council, public hearing. Would this even happen by July 4th?
Most likely not.
Okay, so it's not probably really as critical as these other ones. I'd still like to address it and have a discussion. But changing the code is very lengthy, as it should be.
Push it to winter.
Yeah, we push that to winter.
Yeah, I like Commissioner Charbonneau's point of being efficient with our time and packing everything in. It could also be, I don't want to include it in every single packet, but it could be like if time allows, put it at the end of the
Right.
next work session, and then
Right.
if we have time, then we can go into that.
Yeah, that's fine.
It should be a fairly simple thing to introduce some new ideas. We're not talking.
Yeah, but based on a code change, how many meetings we have to get it done.
You have to have a work I mean, you have to have a public work session on
It
that.
won't happen before 4th of July.
Right. We can still plug away at it.
Yeah. It has to
It
go.
needs to be done sooner or later. Or you're saying if we don't make it 4th of July, then let's just kick the can down the road and address it in
Well,
January?
So we'll put it in when we can, but realistically, if we start it now,
Yeah.
administration says it based
Yeah,
on
so we don't
where it
wanna-
has to come back and forth, it
Yeah.
won't make it there anyway.
Fog it up.
But yeah, we can put it on the last of like a work session, again, that way it's on our radar and
Right,
we'll
yeah,
get to
keep
it
it on the radar.
at some point, so.
So, and then,
If you're willing to put in that effort to prepare it, appreciate that. I guess eventually you'll have to do it anyway. But I appreciate all the work all these work sessions entail to get it all ready for us. But if that's something you feel you could,
Well, the nice thing with,
Here.
if we can get Nick there, sorry to interrupt, but.
Go ahead.
Because of our lack of availability the rest of this week, the nice thing about if we get Nick there, like that document, the Sheffler Creek memorandum's already put together, and so that's an easy add into the packet, and so yeah, I'll chat with him and see if we can get him on board.
I hope you can. I'm very interested in that topic. So what are the wishes of the commission?
well, I would also like to get the cannabis use on there. And the main reason why, that I just noticed on this zoning district designations, I don't know if I'm correct here, but they have all these different uses of everything we're doing. Kind of, it's pretty comprehensive, of course, and you have stuff on drinking establishments, but there's nothing on cannabis use establishments. And now we have a open air cannabis license endorsement now, and the community hasn't had a chance to really talk about that. And so I think we should probably start looking at some different, what other communities are doing. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of other codes and that other entities or other communities they've already dealt with this to some degree, so if that's something that we can direct the staff to do and start looking into and gathering information.
Would you like to see that this summer or fall, or when?
Oh, it
what's your
should be
timeline?
happening as soon as possible, I think, because
Okay.
we're behind the 8 ball on it. We should have been ahead of this. When it first came out, when the endorsement request first came out, because this is the first year the state has given this endorsement for open air on-site consumption, and Seward and they don't have anything on the books for this, and so therefore we're defaulting to the state. And the borough, I don't know what they have. I don't think they have anything to it, and so I think we need to take ownership of our community, and we're unique compared to others, so we need to make it according to what we want and what we'd like to see.
So we have the hazard and mitigation plan and rules of procedure, flood mitigation with Sheffler Creek if Nick can attend. Generators if there's time.
I think that's a solid,
That sounds pretty full for May 21st. It sounds pretty full.
and if, again, nothing official comes up for June 4th, we could do a quick meeting and then start tackling some of these other topics.
Oh, yeah, for May 21st, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
So you'd
we're filled up with that.
You'd be
so-
okay with June?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So, does that sound good for the commission? Those topics?
Yeah,
So-
that works.
Okay. And I hope
So we're addressing all the topics, it's just the timing.
Right, eventually, and there'll be more.
Yeah.
So we're trying to prioritize them and also make sure Brennan can be here for housing. So that's why we're pushing that to June or July. It should be gone July 2nd. Right?
Yes,
So
June would be better.
June would be better for housing. And Brennan's here to represent.
Okay. Can-
And we don't know about the other commissioners, but we hope they can attend as well. I hope we have a quorum. Okay. Does that give you the guidance you seek?
I guess it's a good start for the next work session, and then, yeah, I guess we'll be in touch with what we're able to book Nick for that and options if not, so.
Thank you very much. That moves us to informational items and reports. Reminder of meetings, we'll have a work session on May 21st at 6 p.m. here. Our next regular meeting will be on June 4th at 7 p.m. here. There are no other items.
Possibly a double header.
Maybe, yeah. Stay tuned. Citizens' comments. There's no sign-in for this comment period. It's limited to 5 minutes. Do any citizens wish to speak? Okay, hearing none. Commissioner and administration comments. Let's start with you, Nathaniel.
Well, always administration, thank you very much. I want to thank Seward Company for coming in and presenting that lovely presentation. It's a lot to think about, and the public for coming. Thank you guys for being here too.
Brennan.
Yeah, we had great public attendance. That's always hard to see. Sorry we lost our one person on their resolution, but still pretty good. Yeah, thanks administration for all your hard work as always. And yeah, I think we got a lot done. It's good.
Commissioner Hubbard.
My second meeting, and I'm trying to come up to speed. Thank you, Clara, for answering my phone calls and staff getting back to me as needed, and I'm learning lots, so appreciate the presentation today, and you keeping us on task. Chairperson Griswold. So that's all I have. Thank you.
And I too thank the Alaska Railroad, Christy Terry, for coming. It's always great to see you here. And the Seward Company and the Caribbean group. It's wonderful that they could come and share with us. Thank you to the public for sitting through this meeting. Thank you very much. And of course, in development, you're just pushing a lot of stuff really well. There's really good work coming out. And I just am thrilled to see the progress we're making, and I'm excited about what you got in the pipeline for us. It's wonderful. Thanks to the commission for being here and for your good thoughts and good work. Thank you to the clerk and the executives, or the assistant. No, deputy.
Deputy City Clerk.
Deputy City Clerk, Jody, thank you for being here as well. So,
Did administration have any comments?
did administration have any comments?
Let me say I appreciate working with you all. That's just over 2 months into my position, and with this last city council meeting, those 2 rezones that went through from the inventory plan update. It was kind of the first start to finish projects since I started here, and one of those being the Jeep Trailhead, rezoning from residential to park. And I know we don't get a lot of attendance at these meetings, but I know people were excited for that meeting, and so even if people aren't here, the work you do is important, and it shows. And when people show up like that, and you can see long-term the effect of what you do in something like that when you look at the zoning map. And so I'm excited. I've been learning a lot in my position through everyone, Courtney, Clara, and then you all. And so I'm looking forward to tackling these issues as we move forward.
And additional comments, but just thank you all for your engagement and support.
Okay.
We need to recruit one more person.
Yes. One seat.
You get a bonus point if you adjourn on the hour. I don't know if you can stall for time.
I now call this May 7th
Might not be worth it.
meeting. There's no seconds that I can see. Anybody got seconds on their clock?
I watched so that.
Isn't one of them quicker?
I
though?
want that
Which one are we
bonus
like?
point. Holy cow, that's a long.
That's a long minute, isn't it?
Well, we've waited this long.
Oh, there we go. It's,
What?
There it
it's
is.
9:11.
Clock behind me
The one
is,
behind you is
it's
there.
different.
Yeah. It is.
9 o'clock, I call this meeting adjourned.